I lost my husband, and just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my sister-in-law and her husband stormed into our home, called me a stranger, and threw me out like I was nothing. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd walk away quietly. But what they didn't expect was what I did next. So grab a seat, hit that like button, and subscribe for more real-life stories with twists you won't see coming. Why is there some stranger here? My sister-in-law sneered, stepping over the threshold of my house with her husband. Her eyes flashed with disdain. Are you trying to leech off us? Leave the money and get out immediately, she demanded, venom dripping from her voice. I stood there, stunned. You don't actually think you're staying here, do you? You and Virginia are practically strangers, her husband added coldly. It's better if only blood relatives live together. So please leave as soon as possible, he concluded. All they cared about was forcing me out. They hurled insults, calling me a leech and an outsider. I'd had enough. Ignoring their words, avoiding their eyes, I gathered my things and walked out of the house. My name's Jasmine, a 35-year-old working housewife. Right now, I live a peaceful life with my husband Wesley and my mother-in-law, Virginia. I never really had marriage on my radar, but I agreed to this arrangement with the understanding that I could continue working after tying the knot. Wesley is always such a sweetheart to me, always making sure I come first. I heard that his father passed away when Wesley was just starting middle school, and since then, Virginia has been holding down the fort, raising my husband and his sister on her own. We don't have any kids yet, but I bet bringing them up involves a lot of challenges I can't even begin to imagine. That's why I was worried about Virginia living on her own, so I proposed that we move in together after the wedding. Virginia, what do you think about living with us? If you're okay with it, I'll be out during the day for work, so you'll have plenty of alone time like you're used to. Plus, isn't food always better when there are more people? I asked. Virginia smiled. Really? To be honest, living alone has been a bit lonely lately, she remarked. And just like that, we decided to share a roof. My husband had been worried about his mom living by herself, but he had been bottling up his feelings, not sure if he should suggest we all live together. In the end, we realized neither of our current places was really suitable for the three of us, so we went all in and bought a brand new house and started our life together. We set up Virginia, who has weak legs, on the first floor, and we took the second floor as our bedroom. Living with her turned out to be way more comfortable than I had imagined, and it didn't stress me out one bit. In fact, she taught me how to cook and even helped me with cleaning, which isn't really my strong suit. I was grateful for everything. Virginia, thank you so much for cooking for us every day. But don't push yourself too hard, I told her. We're going to be living like this for a long time, and if you burn yourself out now, it might be tough down the line. She shook her head. What are you saying? I'm living with you, so let me at least do this. If I don't, I'd feel like I'm freeloading, and I can't stand that, she lamented. Our household was always filled with these lively exchanges. At first, my husband was nervous about potential mother-in-law and daughter-in-law disputes, but seeing us getting along so well, he was able to fully concentrate on his work without any worries. Jasmine, thank you for getting along so well with my mom, Wesley said one evening. I will work even harder to make you happy. Even though I already had all the happiness I needed, he always made such promises. I'm already over the moon with joy because I have you and your mom, I replied. If I got any greedier, I'm afraid I might jinx it. I hoped that these peaceful days would never end. That was my wish. But such a peaceful and happy life didn't last long. About 6 months after we started living together, I noticed that Virginia was acting a bit off. Is something bothering you, Virginia? If you have any worries, I'm all ears, I asked gently. My mother-in-law, who was clearly feeling down, hesitated at first, but after a while, she opened up. Well, Bonnie and Malachi have started dropping by almost every day, she confessed. They said they were short on cash, so they took money from my purse, and they even raided the fridge. They are treating this house like their own. What? I gasped. It turned out that my sister-in-law and her husband were making themselves at home during the day while my husband and I were at work. I remembered meeting them once before we got married and again at the wedding. Bonnie had looked me up and down as if she was sizing me up. So this is Wesley's type, she remarked. I never would have guessed. She's so plain, isn't she? She just fades into the background. If I were a guy, I wouldn't give her a second glance. She had just blurted out those words. Wesley had mentioned his sister was a bit wild, but I didn't think she'd be this bad. And despite being over 40, she didn't hold down a steady job and just did as she pleased. No wonder Virginia was taken aback. She's been like this for years, Virginia sighed. Even when I scolded her in the past, she never listened. If you're saying it's because of how I raised her, I agree, it's all my fault. No, that's not true. You're not at fault, Virginia, I reassured her. It's a problem when adults act selfishly and cause trouble for others. Wesley, who had overheard the conversation, looked bewildered. So my sister is still causing trouble, he said, sighing deeply. She's a real piece of work. I thought she'd mellow out after getting married, but it seems to have done the exact opposite. From what I gathered, Bonnie's husband Malachi wasn't much of a go-getter either. He preferred a carefree lifestyle, taking odd jobs when he felt like it. Maybe that's why he was always scraping by, complaining about being broke and hungry. Wesley had tried to knock some sense into them in the past, but they never listened. In 3 days, it's payday, and they'll surely come knocking, Virginia said, her expression unusually stern. I really wish to stop them this time. Wesley thought about taking a day off to confront them, but his workload made it impossible. So I'll stick around with you instead, I suggested. Got to be better than leaving you to deal with them alone, right? If they start yakking about money, I'll step up. And so we started to carefully strategize our response. Sure enough, 3 days later, payday Friday, they showed up right as we were in the middle of making lunch. Hey, Mom, we're home, Bonnie said. We're famished. Got anything good? Anything will do, just rustle up some lunch, okay? But upon seeing me, my sister-in-law frowned. Wait, why is Jasmine here? Aren't you supposed to be working? I took the day off to spend time with your mom, I replied. But wait a minute, you just said, we're home, like this is your place. Isn't that a little strange? I couldn't hold back my frustration at their audacious behavior. It's super weird to barge in announcing we're home, isn't it? And then to have the gall to ask her to whip up a meal for you. Just knowing that you've been treating our home like your personal pantry while we're not around really grinds my gears, I continued firmly. What are you going on about, acting all high and mighty? Remember your place, Bonnie scoffed. You're only here because of my brother. How dare you talk to me like that? If you've got time to argue, you'd better get started on making our lunch, she demanded. Antics left me stunned, and Virginia looked completely dejected. After that, Bonnie did as she pleased, raided our fridge and even walked out with a bag full of groceries. Familiarity shouldn't be an excuse for disrespect. This episode made me realize my sister-in-law and her husband completely missed that point. At least with me being present, they didn't broach the subject of money. That was a small consolation. When my husband got back from work and I briefed him on the day's events, he was seething. I'll set them straight. I won't let them run rampant anymore. I've reached my limit, he said, his face flushed with an unusual intensity. Virginia kept apologizing. I'm sorry for all the trouble. But I reassured her, it wasn't your fault. We discussed a bunch of things until we felt a bit better. Following that day, my husband put his foot down, and the uninvited visits ceased. Virginia began to regain her usual spirit. Just when I thought we three could get back to our peaceful life, about a week later, I got a phone call at work. All right, I'm heading there right now, I said, my thoughts just blanking out. It turned out my husband had suddenly gripped his chest in pain at work and was rushed to the hospital. His co-workers said he was unconscious by the time he was transported, and they were giving him chest compressions. With my hands shaking and voice trembling, I quickly dialed Virginia. Virginia, it's awful. Wesley has. Wesley, she interrupted. All right, I'm hailing a cab right now and heading to the hospital. She was quick to dash off. We each jumped in a taxi and raced to the designated hospital. We agreed to meet up at the hospital's general info desk and were then escorted to the room. But by the time we got there, my husband had already passed away. He was in cardiac arrest when he was brought in. We did everything we could, but I'm so sorry, the doctor explained. Wesley had died from a sudden heart attack. His mother and I were stunned by the sudden turn of events. The only solace was that my husband's face looked peaceful, as if he was simply taking a nap. He looked ready to wake up at any moment and ask, "Good morning. What's for breakfast today?" He wore such a tranquil expression. While mourning my unexpectedly departed husband, Virginia and I got to work on the funeral arrangements. Many people from his workplace, along with friends and acquaintances, showed up to pay their respects. The warmth at the funeral made it clear how much he had touched people's lives. Everything was so chaotic, neither Virginia nor I had the time to grieve properly. There were no issues in his regular checkup, I said, crying. It's such a shame. If I had paid more attention to his health, this might not have happened. Virginia shook her head. What are you talking about, Jasmine? You did more than anyone could have expected. She and I continued to lift each other up. I was struggling to bounce back and ended up taking a break from work, staying home for a while. But amidst all this, another unexpected incident happened. This was about a month after my husband's sudden passing. Unexpectedly, our doorbell rang, and Bonnie and her husband showed up. Excuse me, why is the stranger in here? My sister-in-law sneered at me. This is absolutely ridiculous. Are you planning to mooch off us? Leave all your money and get out now, she demanded. I was totally taken aback. Even her husband chimed in. You're not thinking of staying in this house, are you? You and Virginia are practically strangers. I think it's best if only blood relatives live together from now on. So please leave as soon as you can. Next thing I knew, a moving truck pulled up and the couple declared, laughing, We're excited about living here, just us family. While I was grieving the loss of my husband, they showed no compassion at all. All they cared about was kicking me out of the house. They hurled insults, calling me a leech and an outsider. I'd had enough. Arguing with people like that just wasn't worth it. While I was packing my things in my room, Bonnie mocked. What's up? Feeling blue? You can't stay in this house. I know being a widow's tough, but you've got to hang tough. You're younger than me, you'll manage somehow. I disregarded her words, didn't make eye contact, and left the house. Obviously, I have no clue what happened to them after that. The first place I headed after walking out of that house in silence was, of course, the real estate agent. It was to quickly put up for sale the house and property that Bonnie had usurped. There was no mortgage to pay off, and if I could get the paperwork done, I could wash my hands of the two. That was my plan. I had a gut feeling about this, so I had made various preparations just in case things went south. I had mapped out various escape routes for Virginia to get away from her daughter, and just in case, I had even secured a potential new place. Bonnie and her husband probably planned to live off Virginia's savings, but I wasn't about to let them have their way. Even if there's no blood bond, I decided to take care of my mother-in-law for the rest of her life. Virginia announced she was going shopping and dropped by my place. Virginia, let's stay at this hotel until our new place is ready. It's going to be a bit tight, we'll be sharing a room for a while, but bear with me, okay? I said. I'm not worried about that, but do you think we'll be all right? Those kids might start tailing us again, she replied, visibly nervous. I reassured her. Don't sweat it. I won't let them push us around anymore. Things were quiet for a while, but sure enough, about a month later they contacted us in a flurry. Hey, what's happening? We've been thrown out. This is Wesley's house, or wait, it's in Mom's name, isn't it? You can't just kick us out like this. Bonnie yelled over the phone. As anticipated, she was all shaken up. The counterattack finally begins here. Well, that house has been in my name since I bought it. I have no plans of living with you guys, and if I can't live there, there's no point in keeping the property. So I sold it. We've already found a buyer and we're waiting for you guys to vacate. So please leave as soon as you can, I calmly explained. But even if you suddenly tell us to leave, we have nowhere to go. We're unemployed and we have debts. It's too harsh to just yank away our place to live. Bonnie pleaded. Excuse me. I was baffled by what she was saying. But I was evicted from that house that day too, remember? You said something like, when will you stop mooching off other people? But I left without a fuss, didn't I? Why don't you guys just check into a hotel or something? I'm telling you, we don't have any money. Where are you right now? You're with Mom, aren't you? Let me talk to her. Otherwise, we won't be able to survive. My sister-in-law insisted desperately. I figured they must be significantly in the red and already being hounded by debt collectors. That's not our problem. If I may be so blunt, could you stop pestering Virginia? We're aware you've nearly drained all of her savings. Please stay out of her life from this point forward, I stated firmly. How can you be so heartless? Bonnie stammered. My sister-in-law, who was so brazen just a moment ago, must have realized the gravity of the situation after hearing my words. From there, the situation devolved into her crying like a toddler and starting to apologize. In a mix of frustration and compassion, Virginia let out a sigh and reluctantly began to address her daughter. Bonnie, if you think you can continue to lean on me, you're sorely mistaken. Remember using all of your dad's life insurance to pay off your debt. You promised you wouldn't repeat that, but you've hardly worked and gambled again, haven't you? I'm done. Don't ever reach out to me again, she declared. What? Mom, don't say that. Don't be so harsh. Bonnie sobbed. We could hear her tear-choked voice on the other end of the line, but Virginia ended the call abruptly. Jasmine, let's block her number. It'll be a nuisance if she keeps hounding us. She clearly doesn't intend to change her ways. So annoying, Virginia vented her frustration. My mother-in-law, who had previously been racked with fear and anxiety, now had a revitalized look on her face, maybe because she finally got to say what she needed to say. After that, when my sister-in-law realized that I had blocked her number, she went into overdrive trying to reach us. She called Virginia, tried to get through on my late husband's still-active phone, and was relentless. Since we had zero intentions of handing over our new address, and any further talks were just draining, both my mother-in-law and I blocked her on WhatsApp and set our phones to reject her calls. Stubborn as she was, Bonnie even went to our relatives, broadcasting her woes left and right, pleading for financial help. However, all our relatives, clued in on her past gambling debts, seemed to have chosen to turn a deaf ear to her pleas. After being booted out, she and her husband found themselves without a roof over their heads. They resorted to day jobs to get by and spent their nights in a park until they could secure an apartment. They had been so high and mighty before, but look at them now. It's a sorry sight. At this stage, Virginia and I have no plans to lend them a helping hand, no matter what. We're just going to sit back and watch them sink into their debt-filled abyss. A month breezed by, and I finally came to terms with the harsh reality of my husband's death and made my way back to work. I had dropped a bunch of weight, and it was causing concern. But now, after work, I return home to my sweet mother-in-law who greets me with a warm smile. It's incredibly comforting. While our living arrangement is a tad unconventional, I want to keep living this pleasant life with her. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to my story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. And hey, if you've ever had to deal with toxic in-laws or family members, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. See you in the next video.